Good evening, children. Welcome to social class. So we will discuss today third lesson, that is production and employment. So this is one of the important lessons for examination point of view. We will expect to tables and bar diagrams. Okay, for 4 marks. As I told you in the previous class, how to analyze the bar diagrams or the tables. Okay, and also discuss to in third lesson. Clear? So let us start this lesson, production and employment. First of all, we'll discuss about sectors of Indian economy. See, the people have been performing various kinds of activities for their livelihood. For example, as I'm teaching, so my profession, which is comes under service sector, it is clear. So this way, the people have been performing various kinds of activities for their livelihood, for earning money. Clear. So then, these activities means while the people have been doing these activities, has been generating income while earning money itself. Clear? See, these activities can be classified as primary, secondary, and tertiary activities. First of all, so what is primary sector? So primary sector means where the agriculture, mining, fishing, forestry, the activities comes under it. So what are the activities comes under primary sector? Agriculture, mining, fishing, forestry, where the nature is dominant role. Then the activities which are related to nature comes under primary sector. There is a way. So which of the following activity comes under primary sector? Okay, ABCD asking you that. Then you have to choose that agriculture, mining, fishing, forestry, and other activities which are related to nature. Means where the nature is dominant role. Clear? So coming into second the sector is secondary sector. Secondary sector is nothing but industrial sector, where the manufacturing process and where the goods are produced with the help of machines and tools. Isn't it? So in the industry, then the machines and tools has to be used for producing the goods. Isn't it? So this type of activities comes under secondary sector. Mostly small scale manufacturing units, large scale manufacturing units, and also medium scale industries. So entire industrial activities comes under secondary sector. Clear? Then coming into tertiary sector. So tertiary sector is also known as service sector. That's giving services only. So no goods produced in this, but the sector has to be giving services only. Clear? So what type of services we have seen in this sector? For example, banking, postal, transportation. Okay. Next to teaching. Okay, all these. So then the activities which are related to service oriented or comes under tertiary sector or service sector itself. Okay. See, when we have seen these three sectors of Indian economy, so which of the following sectors has been producing goods but not services? See, the primary and secondary sector has been producing goods, but doesn't tertiary sector has been producing. Clear? Service sector has been giving service only, doesn't produce any physical goods. In agriculture, there are the physical goods are going to produce. In industrial sector, there was the physical goods has been producing, but in service sector or in the tertiary sector, no goods produced physically. But this sector has been giving services only. The various kinds of services has been given by the tertiary sector. Clear? See, service sector need for primary, secondary, but no service sector doesn't need primary and secondary sectors. Remember the sentence. Primary and secondary sectors need service sector. For example, transportation required for primary sector now for transporting food grains. You know, the farmers have been producing food grains. So that food grains need to transport to the markets. So this sector need transportation. You know, transportation which is comes under service sector. And when we comes to secondary sector, also required transportation. Right now, for receiving the raw materials from the various kinds of locations and whatever the goods produced in the industries need to transport to the markets. So here, transportation is a service activity which need for primary, secondary, but no service sector doesn't need primary and secondary sectors. So, I mean, primary and secondary sectors, both of them depends on service sector, but no service sector depends on primary and secondary. So this is important here. So in your textbook, there are various kinds of activities given and their professions. Then they have to fill the table depends upon that kinds of activities only, that kinds of professions only. For example, potter. So potter, he make the pots. So potter comes under A, primary sector, B, industrial sector, C, service sector, then none of the above. Making pots comes under industrial sector. Here pots are going to produce. Okay, next to flower cultivator. So flower cultivator comes under service sector. Okay, next to priest in a temple comes under service sector. Next to postal, for example, who is the courier. So courier comes under service sector only. A bank employee comes under service sector. So the student has to see the given professions and classify where they have to come under. Whether they are comes under primary sector or secondary sector or tertiary sector, you have to classify based on the people, their professions only. What activities have been performed by them, have to see them and also have to write what level itself. As I told you just now, priest comes under service sector, but not primary and secondary. Why? Because as a priest in the temple has to give service to the devotees, but doesn't produce any goods. A bank employee has to give service to the customers, but doesn't produce the goods. So the student has to classify the given professions and has to write where they have to come under, where they comes under primary or secondary and tertiary sector. So this is clear. So let us moving on. Employment in these three sectors. So this table gives you information about employment in agriculture, industries and the service sector of the respected years of 1970 to 73 and 2017 and 18. So my dear students, in 1970 to 73, the percentage of employees in agriculture were 74. I mean, 74% people depends on agriculture in 1970 to 73. This way, you have to make a sentence. Clear? Next, so coming in 2017 and 18, the percentage of 74 fallen down to 44 only. Here nowadays, most of the people have been shifting from agriculture to industries and the service sector. So nowadays, the people hasn't been giving much priority for working in agriculture. So that is why the percentage of employment has been fallen down to 44%. So this we have to explain. Yes, coming into industrial sector, in 1970 to 73, 11% of people worked. I mean, 11% employees worked in industrial sector in 1970 to 73, increased it to 23% in 2017 and 18. And there is a double increase in the industrial sector. Double increase it is. So there was a little increase we have seen in the industrial sector for generating employment. Okay. So do you know in the second 5-year plan, the government of India initiated 5-year plans. The plan which is made for 5 years for development of various kinds of activities like agriculture, industries or service-oriented activities. So when it comes to first 5-year plan, which focused on agriculture. But coming to second 5-year plan, which focused on industrial development. India is one of the poor country in industrial development after independence. So this is the reason the government of India under Nehru as Prime Minister, which given much priority for industrial development also. You know, when we compare to the Western countries, we are industrially poor, we are industrially weakened. So that is why we need to develop in secondary sector also. That's what the government of India given much priority for industrial growth from the second 5-year plan. So this is the reason the employment also increased to double, that is from 11% to 25%. Okay. So let us comes to service sector. Actually, service sector given very less percentage of employment in 1970-73 because no government of India much focused on service oriented activities. India was very poor country in IT, I mean information technology. Okay, so that is why due to lack of information technology, the government of India not focused on service oriented activities and also not generated employment in this sector. But in 2017 and 18, it is increased to 31%. I mean, 31% employees has been working in service oriented activities increased. And this sector has been fast growing sector also. Fast growing sector. Because nowadays, so most of the service oriented activities comes up. There were hundreds of service activities comes up for giving service to us. So obviously, the employment also generated in the various kinds of activities. When we have seen the activities of primary, secondary, there were only very few. The nature related activities comes under primary sector like agriculture, fishing, mining, I told you, forestry, right? But coming to secondary sector, only industrial sector. Industries only comes under it. But coming to tertiary service sector, hundreds of service oriented activities present which exist today. That is why these activities required employees or not. This is the reason the government of India generated a highest range of employment in service oriented activities. This is the reason, see, the number of the percentage of employees worked in the service sector increased to 31% in 2017 and 18. So, my dear students, you have to analyze or explain the given table to get 4 out of 4 marks. First of all, the student has to start the answer with the proper introduction. You know, the given table is about the given table represents the percentage of employees in agriculture, industry, and service sector. Then you have to explain the table by comparing in 1970-73 to 2017 and 18 of agriculture, industry, and service sector. Yes, no. So then you have to write 4 points to get to 4 marks. Clear? And sometimes the examiner may ask you to make a pie chart by given table it is. So here the table is not given, but asked to make a pie chart. So there is a pie chart given about employment in your text. Once go through it. The same percentage is given in a pie chart. Here is a table, there is a pie chart. Sometimes the examiner has asked to convert the table into pie chart, and the pie charts into table, and the bar diagrams into table. So this way, the questions may ask you according to information, skill, or AS3. This is important. Okay. So let us moving up. The next important topic is about GDP. That's what? Gross Domestic Product. First of all, the student has to define what is GDP mean. Have you seen the GDP in newspapers or in the news? You might see, but you do not understand about GDP itself. But GDP is the term used by economists only to understand the progress of our Indian economy. So just now we discussed about 3 kinds of activities. Mainly they are primary, secondary, and tertiary activities. So all these activities has been generating employment and as well as producing goods and services, isn't it? So These three sectors has been generating income. The income in the sense of gross domestic product. Clear? The student has to define what is GDP mean. See the value of final goods and services produced in a country in a financial year. In a financial year. So this is very important concept for examination point of view. There will be a question we expect for exam on GDP. The question is that what is GDP and how to estimate GDP. First of all, we have to understand what is GDP mean. Here see the value of final goods and services. I mentioned final goods. See, in order to understand GDP, first of all, the student know about kinds of goods. The goods can be classified as two types. What are they? Final goods and intermediary goods. Intermediary means the goods which are in the process only. I mean, the goods which will not use for final consumption is called intermediary goods. Not for using final consumption. Isn't it? For example, chalk paste is made up of lime. So lime is not a final good. Lime is an intermediary good which is in intermediary stage which will use for making piece of chalk. Here the piece of chalk is final good. So what difference between intermediary goods and final goods? There is a question. I'll give examples. The goods which were used or which were not used for final consumption are called intermediate goods, not used for final consumption. Lime we are not using for final consumption. It will use for making another good it is, or which will use for completing another good. That is why we call them as intermediary goods. Clear? So next, what are final goods one? The goods which will use for final consumption. Example, pen is a final good. Piece of chalk is a final good because we are using these goods for final consumption. Finally, we are using now here when we have to estimating GDP or counting GDP, we have to take the value of final goods and services only, not for intermediary goods. There is a value for intermediate goods also, but we do not take out them. If we take out, what happens? The GDP will be counted double. If it is 100, will come 200 location. So this is not the real GDP. The real GDP which is estimated by taking the final value of goods and services. Isn't it? That is why when we have defined what is GDP, the value of final goods and the services produced in a country in a financial year. Here, you need to understand what is financial year. The financial year which begins in the month of April and in the month of March. For example, April 2020 to March 2021. So this is the best example to financial year it is. Okay, a year of 12 months. There the goods and services produced. That year is called financial year. Clear? So you have to define what is GDP. What does GDP mean? The value of final goods and services produced in a country in a financial year. Okay. For example, April 2020 to March 2021. In between April to March, how many goods and services produced? We have taken the value of final value of them. Then I have taken final value of them, but not intermediary values there. Because there were the intermediate goods also there now. We do not count them. If we count, the GDP will be count double. It's wrong GDP itself. So this is the reason we have to count, or we have taken the value of final goods and services only, but not intermediate rates. Clear? So in order to understand what is GDP, we will discuss a beautiful example that is in the textbook about paddy, rice, husk and wheat itself. First of all, a farmer produced paddy itself, isn't it? A farmer produced paddy and sells his paddy to rice miller. Okay, they have to sell in the market yards or else to the rice millers. No. Here in this example, farmer produced paddy of 25 kg. Okay, each kg carries 100 rupees. The total 25 kg into 100, 2,500 rupees. Here, a farmer earned 2,500 rupees for paddy rupees. To whom he sell? He sell to rice miller. Okay, here the rice miller they paddy into rice. Okay, while rice has been producing, husk also comes out. So the value of rice is 80 rupees per 80 kgs. Each kg carries 40 rupees. 25 kg of paddy has taken. Here the 80 kg of paddy we multiply with rice, we multiply with 40 rupees. Not 3,400 come. Clear? And husk also has the value. 20 kg of husk values, each kg carries 20 itself. So here the total rice cost is 3,600 rupees. He sell to hotelier. Sell to hotelier. Here the farmer sell paddy to rice miller. Rice miller sell rice to hotelier. So the total amount of rice and husk is 3,600 rupees. Next, the hotelier made rice. Making idli and dosa. Idli and dosa which are made up of rice or not. So then, while he sells idli and dosa to the customers, he earned 5,000 rupees. Here the cost of paddy 2,500 rupees. And the cost of rice 3,600 rupees. And the cost of idli and dosa are 5,000 rupees. So what value they have taken? Which good they have taken for estimating GDP? They have to take only idli dosa when the value of idli and dosa, because idli and dosa are the final goods. Paddy, rice and husk are comes under intermediate goods, because we do not consume paddy as directly or not, and even rice and husk we do not consume. So that is why they are under process. Paddy, rice and husk under process, so that we consider these three are comes under intermediate goods. As you know then, how to estimate GDP? We estimate GDP by taking the value of final goods only. Here the final good is idli and dosa, not rice, husk and paddy. Isn't it? See, the student had it down though, but what about the value of paddy and rice? There they have. Here it is that idli means the value of idli and dosa is 5,000 rupees. This value, which includes the value of rice, the value of paddy also. Then the 5,000 rupees which includes the value of rice and the value of paddy also. Isn't it? So that is why the value of paddy and the rice which include in the idli and dosa. This is the reason we have taken the value of idli and dosa for counting GDP, for estimating GDP, but not the value of paddy, rice and husk. So the student has to understand which are the intermediate goods, which are the final goods. So then when we have to calculate in GDP, the student has to focus on which are the final goods only. That is why when we have defined GDP, we define the value of final goods and services produced in a country in a financial year. So that is why they have taken the value of what idli and dosa, but not paddy, rice and husk. So this is one example only, but I have to take any examples. For example, plastic. Actually, plastic which is comes under intermediary only. Then we have to use this plastic for taking n number of goods. So many goods which are made up of plastic or not, what are the plastic items it is? Clear? So if you take out the value of plastic and the value of plastic goods which are completely manufactured, the GDP which will become double it is. So that is why we do not considering the intermediate goods for calculating GDP. So we have to count only the final value of goods and services, but not intermediary goods are. Clear? So that is why the student has to estimating the GDP by taking the value of final goods and services only. That should be remembered. Okay. Next, so there is a bar diagram given. This bar diagram has been representing about the gross domestic product of three sectors. As you well know, the three sectors of Indian economy is. What are they? Primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. Clear? So these three kinds of sectors have been producing various kinds of goods and services and also generating income to the nation. So that income we call it as gross domestic product. Clear? So this bar diagram gives the information about the gross domestic product of three sectors, and the given graphical representation represents about gross domestic product of agriculture, industries, and service sector. Clear? So let us understand 1973-74 financial year. As I told you that the financial year which starts in the month of April and end in the month of March. Just now I have given you an example, that is April 2020 to March 2021. This is the best example to financial year. Here we have taken the financial year of 1973-74, right? So in this financial year, agriculture generated 2,45,479 rupees from the agriculture and its related activities like mining, fishing, forestry, isn't it? Crore, 2,45,479 crore from the agriculture part. Clear? This coming to industrial sector, 1,05,575 crore from the secondary sector. So coming into tertiary sector or the service sector has been generated 2,59,509 rupees. So when we have seen this bar diagram, then you answer the question. So which of the following sectors Indian economy produced the highest amount of GDP, or which is the largest producing sector in 1973-74? A. Agriculture, B. Industries, C. Service. Here agriculture produced 2,45,479 crore. This is 1,05,575 crore. This is 2,59,509 rupees. Yes, no. So when we have seen this in 1973-74, agriculture has been generating the highest amount of the GDP when we compare to service and industrial sector. So let us come to 2013 and 14. So in this financial year, agriculture generated 8,548 lakh crore. Right? Next, industrial sector generated 10,73,561 crore. Coming to service sector, 38,67,681. There is a question. So which is the largest producing sector in 2013 and 14? Largest producing sector. See, agriculture, industry sector, service sector. The answer is service sector in this. Because service sector produced 38,67,681 lakh crore. It is much higher than industrial and agriculture. Much higher it is. So, my dear students, you have to see the value of service, industrial, and agriculture. Then you have to confirm the answer. So, there are two persons may be asked. based on this about diagram. Two maybe itself. One question is that which is the largest producing sector in 1973-74? This is largest producing sector. Agriculture is obviously largest producing sector. Agriculture is okay because this sector has produced 2,40,000 products 71. So this is higher than the rest of the two sectors. Okay, but when we come to 2013-14, which is the largest producing sector in 2013-14? Obviously, service sector. Because we remember here 8 lakh only, 10 lakh, but here 38 lakh crore, 38 lakh crore. So then obviously your answer is what now? Because service sector only. So this way, in examination from a point of view, you may get the questions to answering them. Otherwise, he may ask you to analyze or explain the bar diagram. Okay, so that is when the student has to ready to explain the given table, a given pie chart, a given bar diagram. Okay, this is an important task which is in the social studies itself. As per the information skill, one of the colleagues started asking information in the examination point of view in the name of table, pie chart, bar diagram, so on, and asked to write the answer for given questions or else asked to analyze or explain the given table, pie chart, or bar diagrams. Then the student has to read it. Here, just now we have seen a table. Here, notice the table is about employment. This is the bar diagram is about GDP. So what difference between employment and GDP itself? Employment in the sense of how many number of people have been working in agriculture, industries, and service sector. Clear? They have seen the percentage of employments or employees in three kinds of sectors. We have seen that. But when we comes to GDP of three sectors, GDP in the sense of income. Income it is. Each and every sector has been generating income or revenue itself. Clear? That revenue called as income of entire the nation or gross domestic product. What we call gross domestic product. Or sometimes we use to national income. Because we discussed in the previous classes about what is per capita income and national income now. What is national income mean? The income of entire the nation or income of total population is called national income, isn't it? But here GDP in the sense of gross domestic product, that is the value of final goods and services produced in the country. Okay, so then in the given academic year or the financial year, yes, no. So thousands of goods have been producing and also services. Each and every activity, each and every good has a specific value it is. And each and every service has a specific value. For example, I am teaching here this. Then every month I am getting the salary itself. Okay. So for this activity, I am earning money itself. This sector, this service oriented activity has been generating employment and as well as income also. Are generating income of the revenue also. So when we have seen three sectors and related activities has been generating employment and as well as income also, of the revenue also. Okay. So the student has to focus on this board diagram and answer the following questions. Mostly the questions are asking based on the board diagram. Okay. So what are the questions? Just I asked you, which is the largest producing sector in 1774 agriculture. So which is the largest producing sector in 2013-14 service sector. So why the difference we have seen? Why in agriculture? Why there is service activity? Because this is 1774. Here 13 and 14 itself. So there were the tremendous changes in our country, and our country has been focusing on secondary and tertiary sector activities than the primary sector. You have seen that the Western countries are well developed. Okay, from the 18th century itself. So why they were well developed? Because those countries have been focusing on secondary and tertiary sectors than the primary sector. But India, as a huge populous country, Means one of the huge populous country has been focusing on agriculture and other related activities only. Here, so this is the reason as a agriculturally prosperous country. See here, our country has been focusing on agriculture only. So agriculture doesn't give much revenue. Agriculture has been giving employment, but no much revenue has been generated from agriculture. But highest amount of revenue which is generating from industrial and service sector, but not from agriculture. In agriculture, what they have been generating? Just the farmers have been producing food grains only. That food grains for enhancing food security for entire the nation. Only for food security. But the revenue which is coming from the agriculture is very less when it compares to industries and the service oriented activities. Clear? So from the year 73-74 to 2013-14, there was a lot of changes happens in these three kinds of sectors. The primary sector importance has been falling gradually. Even the employment also. Employment has been falling down, and as well as revenue also. And now the employment has been increasing in industries and service sector, and also revenue. Because the growth of a nation which is depends on the industries and service oriented activities and the agriculture is. Clear? Agriculture only for food security. Enhancing food security only, but not for revenues, not for revenues. But here it is, agriculture is very important. Because for enhancing food security, for providing food grains to the poor and the people are very important here it is. Okay, in order to development, isn't it? So that is why my students you have to focus on these three kinds of activities. Okay. So today's class what we learn? We learn that sectors of Indian economy. What are the three sectors we discussed? What are the primary, secondary, and tertiary sector? So what agriculture is? So what primary sector requires? What primary sector need activities are? The primary sector which consists of agriculture, fishing, mining, forestry, and the sectors which are related to nature, means where the nature is dominant role. Okay, next coming to secondary sector, where the goods produced with the help of machines and tools, such as large scale, medium scale, and small scale manufacturing, it comes under secondary sector. That's when it comes to service sector, all kinds of service oriented activities comes under the sector, transportation, banking, postal, and so on. Clear? So these sectors have been generating employment and as well as gross domestic product. So next, we defined what is GDP and also estimate how to estimate GDP also. What is GDP? The value of final goods and services produced in a country in a financial year is called GDP. Here and also seen that the sectors which are given here of 1973-74 and 2013-14, how much revenue generated, what GDP generated from these sectors, also we have seen today's class. Okay, tomorrow in the class we'll discuss about how service sector is very important. Okay, and what is organized sector and unorganized sectors. We'll discuss tomorrow in the class. So thank you all. Have a nice day.